Hi, I'm Haifa and I'm the curator at the Riverfront Art Gallery at Yonkers Riverfront Library.
What made you want to work in a library, and what led you to the current position you're in?
Well, like most people that work in a library, books played a very important role in my life. I was the daughter of immigrant parents, and I often felt unsure of my place, my identity in school when I was growing up. And books offered me a place to escape to, a place to kind of figure out who I was in the world, where I was in the world, to try and learn about my identity. So books always felt like my friend. We moved around a lot, but books were always the thing that stayed the same. I could always retreat into books. So I was an avid reader, and I read books way above my reading level because I was voracious in what I consumed. And my family really encouraged that. We had a lot of books in the house, and we didn't watch a lot of TV. So books were where I found myself and the place that I called home.
What are your favorite and least favorite things about working in a library?
I feel like I have a kind of double reward in the library because I'm surrounded by books, which, as I said, feel very comfortable for me, feels like home. I feel very identified with books, so I get to have them surrounding me. There's also the smell of books. It's a very visceral experience. I love having them around me. And honestly, I go into the stacks and I get lost because there's always a new world to explore, and I'm always finding 5 or 6 titles that I have to read, or talking to a librarian about a new work that's just come to be. That's, I'd say, my favorite thing. But the other thing, because I work as a curator, I'm surrounded by art. I get to work with artists who are my favorite people in the world. I'm also an artist, so being in that world, navigating that world, working collaboratively with artists gives me a great satisfaction. It's what I would do. It's when I think about that quote, "Do what you love and then you'll never work a day in your life," I'm doing that, and I feel really honored and I'm grateful to be able to do that. There really isn't anything that I don't like about working in a library. Some people say to me, would you prefer to be a curator for a museum or for a gallery in the city? But I really love where I work and what I do. I feel very rooted here because of the books, because of my colleagues who are all amazing individuals. There's an administration here that values art, that values my role as a curator. I guess I'm just saying more things that I love about my job, but I can't really think of anything that I don't like about my job.
In what ways does YPL interact with and provide services to the larger Yonkers community?
I guess I will focus that perhaps on my role as a curator. I also do arts programming. For example, during the pandemic, as soon as I heard that we were going to have to close, I started thinking about how I could offer my arts programming via Zoom. So I did the very first Zoom class, and it was highly successful. So many people tuned in, and it became a thing. And now, as a result, I have realized that being virtual, being able to offer art in that way has given so much more access in a way that I hadn't realized before the pandemic. And so I've continued to do that, offering art classes via Zoom, via a virtual avenue. My role has also been to make the art gallery accessible. I'm always thinking about new ways that our community can access the art without it feeling like a marginalized space. I'm always researching what are other galleries doing, what are other libraries doing, so that when people come into the art gallery, they feel comfortable, supported. There are tools for understanding what they're seeing and for navigating the art that's up on the walls. Part of that is through technology, using QR codes to interact with the public about their art, about their practice, about their lives as artists, but also connecting with young artists, with new emerging artists who may not know how to wrap a canvas or what curators expect when submitting to a show. So making sure that we can connect with artists, particularly in the community, making sure that we're not just hanging well-established artists, but we're hanging new artists, artists that might just be exhibiting for the very first time, and helping them figure out how to do that, and translating best practices for them as they move through their art career.
What do you wish more people knew about YPL and libraries in general?
Well, the most important thing that I want others to know about the library is that it can be an incubator for creativity. Libraries provide resources for artists. I know myself as a practicing artist, I use the archives here. I use our collections. I find great inspiration by going through historical documents, by looking at art books that premiere often, street artists that you may not be familiar with, alternative ways of creating art. There are so many resources here that artists aren't aware of, but also people who may not know how to start a creative life. There are resources here for doing that, not just through programming, but actually just coming in and saying, hey, where can I learn how to do printmaking? Where can I learn how to do acrylic painting for the first time? So we offer all of those resources. We also have so many technology resources for artists, podcasting, green screens, laptops. We have a whole photography studio in the art gallery for artists that may not have resources for photographing their art. We have umbrellas, light stands, backdrops, everything for photographing your art so it can be presented in the best way. There's just so many resources. But the thing that I also love is that we're open to hearing, what do you need? What more can we offer? We want the community to let us know. We'll write grants, we'll find a way, we'll really try to make it happen.
What are some passion projects you've curated at YPL?
Well, I have to say that every art exhibit that I curate is always my passion project. I love every exhibit. At the end of each exhibit, I always say, oh, that was my favorite exhibit, because I care so deeply about the themes. For example, one exhibit is our current exhibit that's getting ready to hang. It's called Memento Mori. And in that exhibit, I knew it was going to be in the spring, and I wanted to really think about the spring as a time of rebirth. Memento Mori references death. And so I wanted to think about what it is that we're saying goodbye to. How can we greet the spring with transformation and rebirth? So death might be losing a loved one to the pandemic, losing what we used to call a normal way of living pre-pandemic, versus how we move about the world now. I also think about Memento Mori in terms of artists. Sometimes we begin a series of work or a new process, and it's not working out, so we need to say goodbye to it. It experiences the death. I think writers use this term, kill your darlings, when they're writing. You may be passionate about a story or a phrase or a sentence, but it doesn't work, so you have to let it go. And I think that happens for all artists. But Memento Mori is also about finding a way to move forward. And for me, a way to move forward is to honor what has happened. In this idea of death, we learn that every day is sacred. In fact, every moment is sacred. The world changes quickly. And if we don't experience and cherish each moment while we're living it, it will feel like death. It will feel like something that you can't capture. And so if we can have that in our minds, it doesn't have to be morbid. It's just a way of knowing that life is temporary. constantly in flux, and we need to be able to embrace that and live each moment. There's a passion project that hasn't come to fruition yet, but it's on my bucket list. I plan for my job at the library to be the last formal job that I do. Now, I'm an artist, and artists never retire, so I'll always be an artist. But in terms of my work here, I want to do a mosaic mural that honors the Lenape people. We currently don't have a monument or a piece of public art yet in Yonkers that does that, but because the library is seated on Lenape land, I think it's so fitting that you walk into the Riverfront Library and see a tribute to the Lenape people. So my passion project is to have a large-scale mosaic mural that'll work with collaboratively with the Lenape people that I call my friends, and have that down on the first floor of the library, either in the atrium or on the first floor when you walk into the library. And I'm never going to give up on that project.
What is your idea of perfect happiness?
For me, perfect happiness, maybe this is because I meditate, but perfect happiness is to understand and embrace that the world is imperfect and that you need to just accept everything the way it is with love and with gratefulness.
What or who is the greatest love of your life?
The greatest love of my life. I think it has to be myself. I think I can't love others if I don't love myself. So it's been a process through the years, but I've learned to love and accept myself with my flaws and with the things that I prefer about myself.
If you were to die and come back as a person or thing, what would it be?
Maybe a younger version of myself, but with the experience that I've acquired with living.
Who is your hero of fiction?
Well, you know, when I was young, I read a lot of James Michener, and he just taught me a lot about the world and gave me a love for traveling. But that's really changed. I'd have to say Noelle Al-Saadawi. She definitely is my hero for fiction. It's different for nonfiction.
Who are your favorite writers?
My favorite writers are Joseph Campbell, Noelle Al-Saadawi, Edward Said, Adrienne Rich, Susan Griffith, and Mahmoud Darwish, who is a poet. I have a lot of feminist writers.
Amazing. Thank you so much.